Hey, Pedro.
Morning.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you again.
Welcome to What the Tech.
Appreciate that. It's a cool name.
So, for our viewers today, we have Pedro from Keeper Security. He's one of our partners on the Password Keeper side, and they do a great job.
Awesome.
So, Pedro, just a couple quick questions that I think our viewers would appreciate knowing is, in general, what should organizations look for when they're looking to select a password manager?
Yeah, so definitely the number one thing is going to be security. And in terms of security, when I say that, I mean our third parties, meaning companies outside of themselves, auditing the company and making sure that what they say about their encryption model, how they handle their data, um, and how they handle customers' data is secure and accurate. Because there's a lot of different password managers out there. You get everybody, even Google, Microsoft, smaller
Yeah,
companies we've never heard of. Everybody's saying we have a password manager, but not everybody is checked by other companies to the same degree. And when I say that, if you look at our security page, we are actually verified by the federal government. We have
wow.
something called FedRep moderate status that actually sets us apart from other companies because that's them saying we have a certificate that we did our due diligence on this company, and yes, it is safe for us, the federal government, and anybody else that wants to use this with a specific set of standards that you're not going to see in other password managers potentially. A good
Yeah.
analogy I like to use is: would you drive a car that wasn't checked out by a verifying third party that it's safe to drive on the road? Probably not, right?
Right,
There's
right.
there's a lot of car companies actually you're seeing today. They're coming and going because maybe they didn't get checked up as much, or even for that matter, anything. I mean, would you use a cell phone that you're not sure about its standards? It's all about the standards of the security, and that's where Keeper's going to do well, and that's really what you want to look for in a password manager, something that's vetted, and it's do your own research, but you can also see what other people have researched about the different products out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you make some great points. I think there's a lot of free tools available, right? And so, but we all know what we get from free is not always the best.
You get
So,
what you pay for.
yeah. So why should organizations adopt a password manager at all? If you can just talk to our viewers at a high level.
Yeah, sure. I mean, when we say organization, we're talking holistically, and there's a lot of companies out there where they want to, keep everything secure as possible. And if you don't have a tool that everybody's using, user A might be using a notepad, user B might have a password manager, but it's their personal one, and user C might just have a very simple password. So by
Yeah.
unifying everybody on a single password manager, the organization can say, okay, I know everybody has pretty good password hygiene. We can't see the passwords unless it's shared with us, but we know that our weakest link has a pretty strong general password security. So that would be one reason is to unify everybody, and kind of going back to the last question, allowing the organization to say these users can work offline. This is a temporary user. Maybe I want more restrictions for different things, like maybe for sharing purposes I can share with them, but they can't share outside of the company. So
Right.
um, people think sometimes with Password Manager, it's just to fill in data. That's not the case. It actually helps an organization keep things secure by having a set of standards for different role types and different users. So it's really about unifying things and making sure everybody's on the same page.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many small business owners that we talk to that as it relates to their passwords, when we ask them, it's like they have no idea what their employees are doing. They know their employees have passwords, but they don't know if they're complex. And okay, so maybe you can talk a little bit about what's different at a high level about yours versus some of the other ones that are out there.
Sure. So I think I mentioned security, and to get specific, there's certain things in our tool that will make it different from a security perspective. Number one is encryption. So I'm not going to get too deep into the technical aspect, but there's many password managers out there. We all encrypt our vaults. It's a password vault, but also a data vault, so you can put files, photos, things other than passwords, data. We encrypt the vault just like everybody else, but we also encrypt at the record level. So when you put a password in there, you put a picture in there, the entire vault has the encryption to it. But in addition, for Keeper, what makes it different is each of those records, each of those items have their own unique key, a 256-bit AES key. Again, I don't want to get too technical, but we have what's called a multi-layer of encryption. So most companies, it's just one layer. You just have the vault. Ours has the vault security, but also the record security. So if you think about it, like a bank vault, even there's a vault lock, but in our vault there's also a lockbox for everything inside. So we're adding layers to security that you're not going to find anywhere else. And some people might say, well, what's the chance that someone's going to get through the vault? That could be true, but our goal is just to have no gaps and just make you as secure as possible, because it is possible, right? So
Yeah. Yep. So here's a question we get all the time is how often should people change their passwords? When I first came to Tag and, obviously we're very stringent on security, we were changing them monthly and then it went to quarterly. And what's the rule of thumb that you guys tell people?
I would say it depends on a lot of factors, but there's been a lot of research over time, and it's part art, a little bit science combined, because there's a user side to it, right? If you keep having to change your password over and over again, you're going to get a little bit fatigued, and then you're going to add like a one or a two. So I would say if you have something like Keeper, it's giving you a very secure password for an item for a website, maybe even 100 characters, very
Oh,
complex, lots of characters. You probably won't have to change it that much. Now, there is a master password to Keeper, which is because it's not in Keeper, you do have to memorize it. Should be at least 13 characters, more or less.
yeah.
Probably around that is good, maybe even a phrase that you can memorize so you can get into your password manager, which the rest of the passwords will be very complex that will be filled in by the password manager. So it's a very complex question. The answer has changed over time. I remember working for a legacy older company, and I also had to change my password every month. But because we didn't have a password manager in that company, I simply had my password, my base password. I added a one, I added a two, I added maybe a lowercase letter to the end, and that really wasn't changing it that much. So I guess the new recommendation is use a password manager to just give you a super complex password, and when possible, have two factor in addition to that password. So you're covering both bases. Because what happens is there are bad actors out there with tools. They'll simply run your account through it, and the tool will just, over a set of time, if the password is short, it will get to the password and it will guess it, and they'll have access. So overall, I would say as technology increases and you have things like a password manager, just have it generate the password for you, which could be very complex.
I like the idea of just on autopilot instead of me having to think about one and try to make it complex with special characters. So yeah, that
Right.
that that makes a lot of sense. So, any other benefits that things that potentially are in Keeper that our users might want to know about?
Right. So when you start using Keeper for work, it's like riding a bike. There's a little bit of an adoption period, but once you start getting it, it's gonna securely fill in things to websites. Keeper always checks if it's actually the right website, so you're not being phished. But the benefit here is that for work, you become more efficient. It's filling things in for you, your different websites, saving information. But for personal use, once you adopt it at work, you're gonna say, "Hey, I need something to make a secure password for my social media, my LinkedIn, my food ordering account. Can I have Keeper for that?" And if you do have a Keeper business account, you do get a complimentary personal use family account for up to 5 people. And now you're securing yourself at work, but also personally. So for me, I travel quite a bit. And when I have to pay my bills and I'm like, what's the password for this account? It's all in Keeper. And I have a folder that says, these are my bills for the month. And it's all organized in Keeper. So there's that organization part, but also just knowing, my different credentials to different things and being able to have it no matter where I am. It doesn't matter if I'm here, another
Sure.
country. Keeper keeps me organized at work, but also in my personal life.
Wow. I wasn't aware of that. I'm going to go home and tell my wife and 3 kids that they need to now use Keeper, and I'm
There
sure they'll
you
all
go.
love
Yeah.
it to hear them complaining about it. All right, well, we get into the end. Or is there anything else that you want to say about Keeper security that you just want people to know about?
Yeah. And there's again, there's a lot of tools out there, but we have the most security research on the things that are coming up with bad actors, and so it's a very secure tool where we have a PhD researchers making sure that we're up to date with our security.
Wow.
It's a very usable interface. We've been around for over 10 years at least. I've been with the company over 5. So it's just a very secure tool to make life easier, and you can use it at work, you can use it at home. And once you get it, you're not going to want to go back to, hopefully not a notepad or something like that. But yeah,
I get it. That makes sense. I bet you the adoption is really high and probably people are pretty sticky.
correct.
Well, Pedro, I want to thank you so much for joining What the Tech. I thought this was great. I thought you did a great job. So thank you very
Awesome.
much. And we'll be
Very
talking
cool.
soon. All right.
Thanks.
Take